always a blessing to meet with people who are blessed with freedom and know that in their hearts. As I stand with you today and before you, I want you to know that I am free from suffering. I am free at last. Praise God, I am free. If you look down, you may notice that I am living today in different shoes. For 8 years, I've lived in sneakers. But every Sunday, I've put on shoes that I've had from the ancient past, dress shoes. And I have suffered. Once you've lived in sneakers that long, you lose the comfort of just walking around. So today I'm in sneakers and I am so free. I'm free with the Spirit. I'm glad to have Chris Sullivan with us again today as our prayer chaplain, and encourage any of you who might have a special prayer need in your life to meet with her following the service, where she'll be up front here, and she'll be so happy to pray with you and to focalize the consciousness of our work together. I also want you to know that next week we'll have a very special speaker here, none other than Cherie Larkin, who will be speaking for us next week. We're going to be going to a ministers' conference in Monterey this week, and so because I'm that close to Malibu, I'm going to go on down and see my daughter in Malibu. So I will be with you in the Spirit next week. Also, as Cherie indicated in our prayer work, we continue to do our prayer for our country and for our world. The word that comes to my mind is the plot thickens. And so our prayer work is essential to the outcome of letting God work in the miraculous way that God does in situations that seem absolutely impossible. So we give thanks for that. I also want to share with you something that crossed my desk this week. As I told you last week, I like to share things with you that I don't have anybody home and say, hey, have you heard this? So you're my family when we come together. And I came across these things. I didn't know them before, and perhaps you do, so I won't linger with them, but this is about the Amazon River. You know that sort of dirty little old river down there in South America? Now, my friend Pat back here has been, I know, on the Amazon, and you wouldn't call it a dirty little river, would you? Big river, okay. The Amazon River pushes so much water into the Atlantic Ocean that more than 100 miles at sea off the mouth of the river, you can scoop out a cup of fresh water. You realize how fantastic that is. The volume of the water in the Amazon River is greater than the next 8 largest rivers in the world, combined with 3 times the flow of all rivers in the United States. Our biggest rivers, Mississippi, and Missouri, etc., Sacramento, put them all together and they're not as big as that river. But this is the one I didn't know that I felt you need to know if you don't know it. Do you know who owns Antarctica? You've been there. Who owns Antarctica? Isn't that amazing that I didn't know that? And apparently that in this room nobody knows it. Nobody owns Antarctica. There's no country that claims Antarctica. And I guess it's because it's all ice. But at the same time, did you know that it's really a desert? It's really a desert. You get no moisture hardly at all. There's one place, a couple of places that are valleys there, that they say it has not rained there even a drop in 2 million years. Amazing. Did you know that Alaska coastline is over half as big as the coastline of continental United States? I didn't either. Did you know that the state of Ohio, that wonderful state that's so important in elections and everything, doesn't have one lake. Not one lake. One more enlightenment. We'll have a quiz next week, so don't forget any of this. And you know, this marvelous country of Spain, some of us, I know, have traveled there together, and it's a beautiful country, and so much history and royalty, and so much of the history of religion has been played out there. But you know what the word Spain means? Land of rabbits. Not too dramatic.
As we come together now for our time of prayer and meditation, let me speak them again. Step into the current, and thou art made whole. And that's what we do as we come together for prayer. We're stepping into the current, to the flow of spirit, where all healing, all power, all strength, all love reside. And we become one in that current, in that stream. So let yourself take a couple of deep breaths and be open and receptive to letting that stream flow in and through your mind. Let its love flow in and through your emotions. Let its wisdom flow in and through your thoughts. Let its life flow in and through your body. The living Christ consciousness is a stream of perfection for you, in you. In Matthew, Jesus said, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. And we feel that now. We feel after that as we step into that stream of consciousness. And whatever is moving in your life, in the experience of your life, you can take the highest thought and know the solution is already there waiting for you as you be still and know. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that the answers to any questions are in God. Have faith that the right and perfect solution will appear. That as you are open and receptive to that stream of universal life and wisdom and health, your answer comes. Be still and know that I am God. Would you affirm it with me? Be still and know that I am God. And this spiritual truth does so much for us in every area of our life, in every concern, every wisdom for our country and our world. Be still and know that I am God. Again, be still and know that I am God. And let your faith be in a right and perfect outcome. One that's guided by Spirit, inspired by Spirit. You are in the inspiration of Spirit, the breath of Spirit. You release any need to be in charge. And you let go and let your mind take on that gentle receptivity. I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. And so letting this idea deepen in us now. We turn our hearts steadfast to the truth that the presence and the power and the love of the universal Christ is moving, streaming in and through every part of our lives. And in that is great comfort and rest for our souls. We don't have to figure anything out. Don't have to force anything. The universe responds to flow, not force. Be still and know. And letting our attention now turn to those we love. Each one of you here, each one who touches this ministry. The names in our prayer box. We affirm that same stream of good. That same stream of miraculous power and strength moving in and through the lives of all whom we love. We affirm for others, you welcome God's blessing. You welcome God's blessing. For others together, you welcome God's blessing. See the life stream is flowing. See the cleansing waves roll. See, step into the current, and thou art made whole. And for a few moments now in the musical interlude, we just let ourselves commune with the one presence and one power, and let that current move in and through all the intimate details of our lives. It moves for goodness, it moves for health and life, it moves in love, in the silence.
As most of you know, we are celebrating this week some of the basic unity fundamentals. And last week we talked about life's purpose. And if you remember the little quiz that I had that time, Sunday, we didn't do too well. Not because we didn't know a life's purpose, but we didn't all necessarily agree on life's purpose, what it was. And to remind you, it is the purpose of discovering the Spirit of God that is within us, the Christ of our being, and to develop those faculties of mind that allow us to fulfill that. And while we may have many other purposes that are legitimate and wonderful, this should be something we keep coming back to, because that's what this life is all about. And we affirm that because we recognize in our work that this life process is a school. That's not new or unique to Unity. I think it's often been referred to as a school, but it was sometimes school to go to heaven. But this is a school that is but a grade in this progress and process of becoming one with Christ's mind. Well, last week, as I said, I don't know that you would have done too well had I really gone around to every one of you and said, what's the purpose of your life? You wouldn't have been in agreement. Today we're talking about healing. And if I go around here, I would bet we get at least a 90% response. Say, what's Unity's teaching on healing? You all know that one. You know what our teaching is on healing. Well, Cherie gave a wonderful talk on healing not too long ago, you know. And the bottom line thing is healing possible? Yes. All things can be healed. This is fundamental to Unity, and again, as Cherie reminded us, that's what founded the Unity work. Myrtle Fillmore had tuberculosis a good part of her life, and in the midst of her life, she discovered, by listening to someone who said, you have the power to change your body. And so she began to speak to all the cells in her body and had this marvelous healing. Well, the books are full of, anybody who wants to read metaphysical books can find one story after another on healing. One of my favorites is in my books, and that is about the woman from São Paulo, Brazil, who came to Unity School when I was a student there. And I noticed her. She was, I would guess, in her 40s maybe. And I noticed her because she was very attractive. I was only about 28 and single. I noticed her, very attractive. In particular, I noticed she looked so beautifully walking in her high heels. One day we ran into each other and we started talking. And she told me that she had come from São Paulo, Brazil here because that she felt she owed Silent Unity the real joy of her life. The fact that she has such a joyous life. Because she said, I was born with a club foot. And she said, I prayed as a little child that I could be like other children and run. But I had this big, ugly foot that I had. And she said, my parents were incredibly well off. And I was taken to Europe for a surgery. And that did not help the situation at all. But she said, someone gave me a daily word one time. And I was reading the daily word, and I saw that they pray for people. And she said, I just knew that at last God was going to answer my prayer because I would have this wonderful group, Silent Unity, praying with me. And so she said, I sat down in the evening when I was reading the daily word at night, and she said, I was in my robe, and I sat down and wrote, Dear Silent Unity, I need a healing of my foot. Will you pray with me? And she said, I got up, still in my robe, walked down to the end of the block where there was a mailbox, put it in the mailbox. And she said, I went back and then turned the lights out and went to bed. And she said, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this most excruciating pain in my foot. And she said, I couldn't believe what it was. And I leaped out of bed and to look at it, and she said, I couldn't believe it. My foot was perfect. Now this, again, you know, scientists hate secondhand stories like that. You know, they say, oh, who tested that? Who took a picture before and after? But when you meet people all through your life, as I do, and you do, you know where somebody's coming from. This woman didn't fly all the way from Brazil because she somehow doctored this whole story. She wasn't selling anything. This was a real story. And of course, we have Myrtle as an example, and they say the books are filled with these things. You can be healed of anything. It follows our basic principle that life is consciousness. And as I remind you, science is getting aboard with that at last. Life is consciousness. What happens is according to what we think. And therefore, in an absolute sense, if you think healing for your body will be healed. I've always loved Charles Fillmore because he, I think, was sort of he liked to take things and follow in sequence. He was very logical about this. And he said, if this is true, then anything is possible, and I am not going to be reincarnated again. I choose to spiritualize my body here and now. I'm not coming back and go through grammar school again and go through high school and romance and all that stuff. He said, I've had it. I'm going to spiritualize my body. He said that in 1922 in a talk. And so from then on, it was all through the unity movement that Charles Fillmore was going to live forever in spiritualizing his body. And as I say, it was logical for him to think that. If consciousness is absolute, anything is possible. And that's basic to our unity teaching. And I've affirmed for you before that some of our scientist friends have joined us, and my friend Bill Tiller, the professor from Stanford University, when I interviewed him, he said, as a physical scientist, I say anything is possible. So Charles was on the right track. But what happened? He didn't make it. And I know you've all heard the story. I think I, again, have it in one of my books. When he said to Dorothy, when she went to see him, when he was quite ill, toward the very end of his life, and he said to her, Dorothy, I'm a failure, because he had set this as a goal. And she immediately responded, Mr. Fillmore, you're not a failure. The things that you have taught that have changed lives have gone around the world. And I pray that that registered in his soul, and I'm sure he got that confirmation when he made his transition. But we could also say, wait a minute, Myrtle totally changed her body. I mean, she had a body that was so weak and so limited when she discovered this message, and she transformed her whole body. How come when she was in her 80s, she just didn't keep on going with Charles? Because she had that power. I think the answer to those questions lies in the fact that the healing of the body as a concept cannot be taken as a specific. To understand healing fully, and I suggest to you this is now the Phil Pierson version of the unity answer to healing. That last week we said that life is a blackboard. When we say we're here at school, we said last week, all life is a blackboard. When you look at the unfoldment of your life, you get messages about how things are going well and how things aren't going so well. And I also said the body serves us in the same way. It's a wonderful instrument for living life, but it also serves you as sort of a blackboard and tells you when things are not going exactly right. When we talk about healing, as I say, we have to go back to these basics to fully be able to understand it. I've always criticized the scientists because they don't do that. They just are in their own little field. But we as metaphysicians have to be expansive enough to look at the whole picture when we talk about something healing. And when we think about ourselves and our own body conditions, We need to have the whole picture in order to fully understand and to be fair to ourselves. Sometimes, as far as our body is concerned and the need for healing, it becomes because of an illness. Sometimes it comes as a sort of accident. Last week we used the analogy of going to the blackboard when you were all in school. And I said I was in a 2-room schoolhouse. And after the service I got shot down because people said I went to a 1-room schoolhouse. But anyway, it was a big thing. We went to the blackboards, and I remember I was so proud the teacher chose me to clean the blackboards after class. And anyway, that was a special time. I don't know whether kids go up to blackboards anymore or not, but we used to. And as we said last week, the teacher, and when we relate this now to our life experience, the teacher can be a spirit. Our own consciousness, our own indwelling wisdom presents problems to us. But they come in special forms that fit the purpose of our life, is to learn what we're ready and suited to learn in that experience. So let's say one of those things come up in your life, and it's like the teacher saying to you, I put a problem on the board. Mary, John, Bill, go up and solve it. And so you march up to the blackboard and you take your eraser and you got the chalk too. You got your chalk in your hand and suddenly you put the chalk down and then you grab the eraser and erase the problem. How do you think the teacher would like that? My teacher in that 2-room schoolhouse, I just love the way consciousness works. Her name was Mrs. Hopkins. Well, last week when I was telling you that, I hadn't thought of that dear lady 80 years or some more. And suddenly there was Miss Hopkins. She was so pretty, I remember. I don't know what she really looked like, but to me as a little boy, wow, Miss Hopkins. But Mrs. Hopkins would have been very unhappy had I just walked up and like that with my eraser. Illness is not natural to our body. It isn't just natural to get sick, even though we're swamped with things on television that tell us, hey, this is the season when it's just natural to get the flu, natural to get this, or natural to get that if you do whatever. And so what I'm affirming for us in the unity standpoint, that is not natural. It is our body, our inner teacher, telling us something is needing attention. It can be as simple as changing our lifestyle or maybe our diet. It can be that simple, but it's still telling us that. I remember my only experience in surgery. You want to hear about my surgery story? I save this story for when I'm sitting around sometimes, and never happens with unity people, but in the general people are always saying, you should have known the way I suffered with my problem. Oh, it was awful. And I say, have you ever had a kidney stone? They say, no. I said, try that one if you want to know what pain is. Try a kidney stone. I had a kidney stone. I thought my back was out. But it wasn't my back, it was a kidney stone. So, in any event, it was so big, they couldn't make it move out. So they said, we got to operate. I said, okay, I've never had that experience. And so, anyway, they had surgery and removed it very simply, because I didn't remember anything. It was over and it was done. Pain, all gone. So why did I get that stone? I was reading, because I was asking Spirit. I was reading a little later an article on nutrition, and it said, soy products can often cause kidney stones. Well, for years, I had been following Charles Fillmore's love with soy products. And I had been drinking soy milk with the cereal and otherwise. I was a big soy man. And so suddenly I knew. So that was the last of the soy products in my life. And I never had kidney stones and never will. Now, for any of you who are on soy products, because they are very popular, again, not everybody's body responds the same way. We always need to know that. That's why it's so ridiculous to make these grand statements about what medicines you should be taking to prevent something. Everybody's different. So anyway, my body didn't like soy, and it let me know. But how wonderful. It let me know. Because had it been producing other things that were just lingering, it would have gone on and on. Sometimes they say they're as simple as that. But oftentimes they're related to life's purpose for growth. And we do need to listen very carefully. It may be telling us to exercise our faith faculty more. That this is my life experience, to exercise my faith faculty. This was what Myrtle did. When she heard that word, she went to work imagining her body, her cells, and having and imagining them seeing her and responding to her word, telling them, I'm sorry, that I always thought that I had inherited tuberculosis. She had that strong belief that she had inherited the disease. And so this body condition was confirming her word. She recognized it, so she used her faith and imagination faculty and had this incredible and wonderful healing. But it may not be a matter of faith. It may be a matter of another lesson. If it was just a matter of faith and imagination, we would have to assume that every one of us in this room who's been a long-time Christian and has a problem in their body is a failure. That wouldn't be very good, would it? Because you know, that's the challenge in metaphysics. When you hear somebody say, bottom line unity, anything can be healed. That means go to work with your faith and your imagination, see yourself whole and well, etc. And it should happen if you're good enough. But what I'm suggesting to you today is that sometimes your body isn't going to let it go of it because it's trying to tell you something else than that you need to exercise your faith. And so it may linger on in order to produce something else in your life which you need to know equally or more importantly perhaps at this incarnation than the faith faculty. Our souls use their body and their affairs to open doors of growth and spiritual understanding. I saw a program on the TED network. I don't know if any of you watch that, but I recently subscribed to it, and so I turned it on, and when it opened up, there was a man standing on the stage, and he was not wearing sneakers. He was wearing some beautiful shoes, I noticed, and he had a beautiful suit on. He didn't have a tie, but he had an open shirt. He was just a handsome-looking man. I would guess he was about 40 or so. The word for what you were about to see was, let me look at it here. It's on creating your reality. What reality are you creating for yourself? What reality are you creating for yourself? I thought, well, this should be interesting. I want to hear this. And so then the screen opened, and this man is standing there, as I said, looking very elegant. And I thought, well, now, is he going to be another guru type, or is he going to be selling positive thinking and going for it big time? But he seemed to have a different air about him. He was, it was just something about him, because he stood so erect, and he was handsome. His name was Isaac Linsky. And he had a very defined nose to go with that name, you know, which made him look very bright and intelligent. Beautiful, large eyes, I noticed. He was just a handsome man, but standing sort of quiet. And I thought, what's he going to say? And so he said, there was a girl called Dorothy. And he said, she took her daddy to their aquarium where they had some goldfish. And she said, look, Daddy, you see the little goldfish? When he wiggles his tail, he goes forward. When he wiggles his head, he goes backwards. And this gentleman said, now we all know that's not true. But he said, that was Dorothy's reality. She believed that. Because when she looked at the fish, that's what she saw. So he immediately said, you see, we create our own reality. And I thought, well, that's good, but where's this guy going? He's sure sneaking up on the subject here for what I'm used to when I hear truth talkers speaking, you know, like Phil Pierson. He then said, I want to tell you 5 things about me. One of them is not true. He said, I graduated from Harvard with honors in mathematics. He said, I have my own construction company. I once starred in a TV sitcom. I lost my sight to a rare disease. I served as a law clerk for 2 Supreme Court judges. Now, which one is wrong? And boy, I could hear voices, you know, people were shouting out various things. And he said, yeah, I heard you just talking about sitcoms. With that, he reached in his back pocket and pulled out this long stick, white stick. He said, they're all true, and I am blind. He said, I did lose my sight. And he told the folks about this condition that came to him when he was a relatively young man. And he said, I was pitched into such depression because those things that he told about was true. He'd graduated Harvard like that and had served 2 Supreme Court justices. And as a young person, he was only 13 when he was on this sitcom. And he had everything going for him the way people like to have it in this physical world. And he said, then suddenly came this disease. And he said, I was plunged into such despair because I meant I was going to be dependent on people the rest of my life. And I would live nothing but a very mediocre life at best. And he said, but then something in me took over. And he said, I just made up my mind I wasn't going to accept this. And then he went on, and I don't have time to go on any further with his particular analogy except to say he went on and gave one of the simplest, low-key but positive, because there was living proof of what you can do when you don't get your healing. It doesn't matter in terms of fulfilling life's purpose. As he said, I lost my sight to discover it. Because he said, I see everything inside now the way I want it to be. I create my own realities. So they asked him about his business, you know. He said, I run this business, but I do it different than most people, because he said, I can't see when they all sit around the table and make faces at me. Or if I say, you know, we're going to build 50 more houses over here, he says, I can't tell whether they don't like that idea or not. But he said, I have found by going in depth and having them talk to me, and I can tell when they're coming from their heart and when they're not. He said, it works wonderfully well. So he's a very successful man. And then he said, you don't have to lose anything in life. He said, I have had such a beautiful life. And then they showed this picture. And here's the most gorgeous wife that he has, and 4 beautiful children, triplets. They had triplets at once. So he had it all in terms of what the world would have, but he didn't get his healing. So I use that example. No, before I let go of him, I wanted to say, he wound up by just saying, take charge of every thought that you have that comes. And he said, think only on that which is good and what you want. Powerful, powerful message. And he just never moved this way. I think he talked the whole time with his arms at his side like this. The way my voice teacher tells me you're supposed to stand when you're singing. Because I'm ready to go like this, you know. And just stand, your hands at your side. That's the power position. So he had it. So, to wind this up then, what I'd say, it is wonderful if a condition comes to our body and we learn to say, I got a message. What is it trying to tell me? That's real. That's not poppycock. And then to let the Spirit reveal to you what it is trying to tell you, and that message will become clear as things unfold for you. It may well be that you are meant to be like Myrtle and buckle down with your faith and get the job done. Or it may be something that will move you temporarily, at least, into a position that your life needs for a learning message. Then you get your healing. Or you may not get your healing and still prove the truth that what you experience in life is an inside job. This man went into great depth to how our minds work and how your eyes see things, but he said, you don't see what's real. He said, you see what you feel and think inside. It shapes everything that you actually think you see. I got to turn him off now. He was great, as obviously you could tell. But I just want to say, I have a living example in the front row of what I said. One of my best friends, Jack Benson, sitting here in the row. I'm getting a little emotional. But this guy's lived with almost his entire life, being legally blind. But nobody that I know has been more successful in business or have lived a fuller, richer life than this guy. Because again, he chose to believe what he wanted to be true. Fantastic. I keep getting back to that, but I got to wind up with the last part. I mean, with what this is about. So you understand now healing. Healing offers you physical challenges that need healing, offer you the opportunity to practice your consciousness. It's not a terrible thing at all. And it's up to you to listen to it, to speak to you, and it will guide you into how to respond to it. Let's close our eyes and feel together the wonder of the way in which God has evolved us. That what I have shared, every one of you know in your heart and mind in a fashion that fits your soul's understanding. We know it to be true. Life is filled with such potential. It is a wonderful thing. And dear God, we give thanks that that is true. And as you go forth, may you know that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, the presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is. And so it is. Amen.